the Vikings had 2 trades. We'll touch on these quickly. So Kirk Cousins, as we all know, tears his Achilles. Tuesday they trade for Josh Dobbs. They give up a 6th-round pick in 2024, so really not losing any capital at all. But I want to talk about why I think the Vikings are actually still very much alive in the wild card race in the NFC North. NFC North, I think, is probably going to be out of reach. Detroit is likely to run away with that division. But when you look up and down the NFC, Josh Dobbs' numbers this year have actually been okay, despite the 1-7 record for the Cardinals. He's played okay. He hasn't been great, but that Cardinals team is not very talented. Josh Dobbs is probably playing just as well as Jordan Love, right? And Justin Fields is playing okay. And the other teams in the NFC are going to compete against is going to be the South teams, the Falcons, the Saints, the Bucks. I don't think that Josh Dobbs is coming into a situation where he can't play some of the best football of his career with Justin Jefferson returning soon, Jordan Addison stepping up, TJ Hockenson is playing some of the best football of his career. And the defense under Brian Flores has drastically turned around. I mean, what a difference from last year to now. And that's your guy, Zach, Brian Flores.
He was a Steeler too.
Your guy too.
Sure was.
And the offensive line. The offensive line is also unbelievably playing really good football. This whole Vikings team is playing great. It's now a matter of, can Josh Dobbs come in and not mess up the entire thing? So I think that this team very well could go and make a run at the 7th seed.
Oh, there's a world of Vikings win the next 4 of their 5 games. Mm-hmm. They're playing cream puffs, I think, back-to-back weeks. We talked about this last episode. He just has to be, and I said this about Jaren Hall, whoever was going to start at QB, I guess it's Dobbs now. He just has to kind of be all right because the weapons are there. Like, you have JJ, who's coming back shortly, Addison, Hockenson. It's a decent cast around him. He just can't be abysmal, and Josh Dobbs is not. Like, he's in a
he could be,
but I don't. But he's been in a tough situation. Yes. In Arizona.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Minnesota's not a bad situation offensively, and I think he's okay enough to captain that.
Ziggy, as a fellow Vikings fan, were you happy with this move? All right, there's a skull.
I guess.
Yeah, no. I like this trade, and I'll tell you why.
Me too.
They gave up very little. There's no point in giving up on the season. And one thing I think people aren't paying attention to of Dobbs is he adds something to this offense that Kirk Cousins couldn't, namely the running game.
Yep.
I get that he's not Lamar Jackson, but he's got 260 rushing yards this season. I don't think this gets a lot of attention. So Dobbs will make more mistakes than Kirk Cousins. There's no doubt about it. But in some sense, when things are going at all cylinders, the offense is go in motion and then get the ball to Justin Jefferson. And if you can't get the ball to Jordan Addison, and if you can't, then run. Like, that's how this offense is going to look. And I think that's totally fine. So if your goal is to make the playoffs and be a threat to win a game, Dobbs, he makes some mistakes, but he also makes some good plays. And there are a couple plays he can make that Kirk Cousins just couldn't. I'm not saying he's better or even close, but I don't think he's a terrible guy. He gives you a floor, and it means that we can play Jaren Hall this week, see if he's any good. And if that doesn't work out, you've got someone to fall back on so the season's not totally over.
He's the third.
I'll give him a 6th round pick for that.
The 3rd leading rusher among quarterbacks in the NFL this year.
I mean, I was saying too, my move, I remember I was talking about going and getting a Case Keenum, but I was kind of half joking, half not. But the point is getting somebody for super cheap, and that's what they did.
You really gave up nothing.
There's really no harm done at all. And I think Dobbs is a half decent quarterback.
I would prefer Dobbs. The one thing I did not want was to go out and get, I like Case Keenum, but Case is a little more mobile. But I didn't want to get
Dobbs is
a
better
Nick
than
Foles. I didn't want to get a Matt Ryan. I didn't want to get a quarterback, an older guy who is going to come in and just get absolutely annihilated and make, a Kirk Cousins who just can't throw the football. Like, Kirk was going up to the line. He can't move. But Kirk was reading defenses better than he has his entire career. They were saying he was going up to the line of scrimmage with 3 plays in his back pocket. Like, he had mastered the O'Connell offense. Whoever we had coming in, who was a statue in the pocket, was not going to be at that level. So I like having the dual threat ability, someone who adds a dimension we haven't seen to the O'Connell offense, and give Kevin another weapon to mess around with. Why are you laughing so much here, Zach?
I don't know. I'm just smiling. It's
Zach's like, your season's over. Shut up.
Are you high, Zach?
No.
Zach's like, shut up. Your season's over.
Definitely not.
I bet you we're going to win the same number of Super Bowls as the Dolphins this year.
The last thing.
Oh yeah, Mr. One seed of the AFC.
What's with the shade? What's with the shade, man?
You're laughing at us. I'm going to defend the Vikings a little
sweating.
bit.
It is hot down here.
Thank you.
How surprising would it be if the Vikings win the same number of playoff games as the Dolphins, namely like 1? Not that shocking.
All right, Zach. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that we don't play in the NFC East where everything is just, garbage on garbage.
Neither do we.
The North.
No, the NFC. Just the NFC in general.
No, I don't know what he's saying right now.
I thought I said East. So
I also just want to mention this real quick.
did.
Ezra Cleveland went to the Jaguars. The Vikings traded him. He was having a good season. He was playing okay. But the response on Twitter and the response from like general fans is like, I think Ian Rappaport it was one of the reporters said, Vikings trade standout left guard Ezra Cleveland. And people were like, why are the Vikings giving up such a talented young guard? Do you remember 4 weeks ago, I was sitting here screaming into the microphone to get rid of the guards? They've drastically improved since then, and Cleveland's probably playing some of the best football of his career. It sounds like he was a really nice guy, but Dalton Risner came in. There's a reason that we traded Cleveland. If Cleveland was playing that well, we would not have just given him up for as cheap as we did. Like he's had his moments. But Ezra Cleveland is not someone that I look back. When we trade him, I was like, oh, all right. Like, yeah, Risner, okay, he's better. It was just a strange response from people that Ezra Cleveland seemed to be such a gigantic loss and poor trade from Kwesi. I don't know what that was.
No, look, Dalton Risner was just some guy on the street, right? Any team could have gone out and signed this guy. And then Risner steps in and plays better than Ezra Cleveland. And we're supposed to believe that, like, Cleveland is this irreplaceable guy. Guess what? Just a free agent was better than him.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not saying that Cleveland is like terrible.
It's a good move for Jacksonville. It's a good move.
The Jaguars gave it up because Cleveland, he can play guard, he can play tackle. He's someone who can step into a lot of positions if they get an injury, which is important, right? There aren't a lot of players that are that flexible. It's not because he's a stud.